Welcome to the new Cyber Frontier, bringing you the latest news on the local Colorado economy and initiatives that focus on the development of cybersecurity economics. You don't have to be a computer or cybersecurity expert to get plugged in. Your host, Chris Gorog, brings it straightforward, asks the tough questions, and brings the cyber world to a level of understanding for everyone. Chris is personable and opens up with our guests on issues we all would like to see addressed. You can find us on the web at www.newcyberfrontier.com. Now join our host as he introduces the topic for today's New Cyber Frontier.
Welcome to today's episode of New Cyber Frontier. Today, we're going to talk about some certifications and a lot about how the military needs these certifications for the service members. Our guest today, Tom Ponville, is a cybersecurity certification trainer at the local Army base. So a lot of Army here. I know he has quite a few certifications: PMP, Network Plus, Security Plus, CASP. Welcome today, Tom. How are you?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. I was interested. We had a conversation a while back about what it takes and what is required for the service members, and that they're really ramping up because the government has made a lot of requirements on them to be certified if they're doing any work in the IT field. So we're going to talk about that. But first, Tom, I want you to give us your background. How did you get to where you're at teaching with the military? You know, what's your background in security and things like that?
Well, Chris, I actually started out, believe it or not, in the space and satellite operations field. I taught that for quite a while, and then I decided I wanted to change a career. So about a couple years ago, I got my Security Plus certification, and I started applying for jobs, and I happened to get this job over at Ironhorse University, and it's been a great time. The whole time I've been there, been certified in a bunch of different things, and teaching a lot of different courses there.
Yeah. So do you find do you only teach what you're certified in as far as the certification courses?
Yes, that's the rules that we have to live under, is that we have to be certified in everything we teach.
Okay.
So I've just been, getting as many certifications as I can because I want to just teach as much as I can.
Yeah. So explain to me the military's requirement now for certifications, and how recent is that and everything?
Well, we've had a DoD regulation that covered all that for quite some time now. It's DoD directive. It's going to be 8570. It came out somewhere around the early 2000, and it's been updated with DoD Directive 8140. But that covers all the certifications that's required by anyone working on DoD network systems, information assurance systems. That includes direct active duty, includes GS, includes contractors. So anyone at all that's working on these information assurance systems have to comply with these directives, and to do that, they have to get these certifications.
Yeah, and it's made quite a spin lately where the government requiring these certifications. Everybody's talking about, I got to go get my cert, got to get this cert, I got to get that cert. I've talked to a lot of people that have worked in government contractors for quite a few years, and were not required before, but they're really being pushed that you have so many months to do this now. And that's kind of, I would say, just in the last couple of years.
Yes, Chris, that's correct. Actually, they have been starting to push this very, very hard. And again, they started basically to get these certifications. They went out to the industry like CompTIA and EC Council and said, we need you to get these industry certifications. They're already there. They're very well known. They're very credible. And they said, the DoD overall has made this decision. In fact, the Army kind of started taking a lead on this. And again, we support more 4th Infantry Division soldiers, but we also get other airmen and from the Air Force. So we're getting different branches in there as well. So it looks like even the Air Force and even the Navy is starting to pick up on this lead that the Army kind of came up with, and with these industry certifications. And like I said, we're starting to get more and more of those as well.
Yeah. And I take that it's a lot of trying to get everybody in talking the same language, because there is so much lingo and acronyms in this industry, and it seems like that's because I teach at a university. So as far as the track for certificates are not quite aligned to, hey, here's how the education learning about cybersecurity would work out. But a certificate means, hey, you understand and know the lingo for doing a particular job. So I can see how that makes sense to the military. What is your take on kind of the certification versus a full education, maybe even a degree knowledge in the area?
Well, I can tell you from experience, I found out that getting started in the IT industry, you do need these certifications, even in the civilian world, not just the military. I have a master's degree in information management, but when I started out in the information technology field, that really didn't do me any good. All I was asked, the whole time was, do you have any certifications like Network Plus, Security Plus? And so that's when I went out and got this certification. So the degrees, I'm definitely not, putting down any kind of, college degrees, because I think they're very important. But to get started in IT, you definitely have to have these certifications.
Yeah, so it's the resume thing to get through the door to get started.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, well, let's take a break. We'll be right back after we hear from our sponsors.
We'll be right back with the rest of today's show right after these brief messages from our sponsors. Cyber Resilience Institute helps build strong cyber communities designed to prevent members from attack. Like building a neighborhood watch, it takes coordination and a sharing community to protect our identities and valuables in the virtual world. Typically, we hear that organizations know they need to do something to protect their cyber assets, but don't know where to begin. Let Cyber Resilience Institute help your community create an action plan. Cyber Resilience Institute will build your community or business marketplace so that it is designed to support a collective cyber defense. Contact them for more information at cyberresilienceinstitute.org.
Welcome back. We're talking to Tom Ponville about certification training. And Tom is a trainer over at the local Army base, right? Fort Carson here in Colorado Springs, correct?
Yes.
And you mostly teach infantry, but you do have some contractors and government and everything come through your classes. What is the mix there usually like?
Well, we get, like I said, we get priority to the 4th Infantry Division at Fort Carson. That's the headquarters there. We make sure that they get the priority in all of our courses. But like I said, when there's room, and there usually is room right now, we can have people coming in like Air Force, airmen coming in. We have some GS, our civil servants coming in to our classes as well that need these certifications. So it is a little bit of a mix, but it's primarily soldiers from the 4th ID.
Yeah, in that mix, what do you see as the challenges that you face as in teaching those courses?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is these are very challenging exams that they have to take for these certifications, especially Network Plus and Security Plus. And without very much experience that these soldiers may have, they do have a hard time with them. And so we do our best at providing whatever education we can on the concepts for them to pass the exam. But a lot of times we fall short a little bit. But just them not having experience and either the job yet or the exams themselves is quite challenging to train these soldiers.
Yeah. So not everybody's going to pass. Do you know like a percentage people pass the first time? Is it 50%?
Well, we have around a 40-50% pass rate in our school. I know that last time I looked at industry around the world, again, these are worldwide certifications that CompTIA provides. And last I saw, the first-time test takers for Network Plus is about a 10% pass rate. So I think we're doing a little bit better than the worldwide rate at our school.
Okay, yeah, interesting. So if you had students coming in or go prepare for any certification course, what things would you recommend for them to start out with, maybe even before they come into your course?
Well, our courses, first of all, these courses are very acronym laden. We really we have a hard time trying to get them to memorize all acronyms, which is kind of ironic because when you're in the Army or any branch of the military, there's acronyms for everything, but they have to learn a whole new set of acronyms when they come in. So I would say that they need to prepare for that kind of acronym world and also the kind of terminology that is associated with these types of courses.
Yeah. So what's some resources is there a list of acronyms for each certification course you could find online, or do you recommend some shows or some YouTube videos or something?
Well, we have we're pretty familiar with Professor Messer. He's online. He's pretty popular. He's got some free videos that anyone that's going to take our classes can actually view before they come to the class to kind of get an idea of the kind of acronyms and terminologies that they're going to be facing when they come to our courses. Yeah. So that would be a good resource right there.
Yeah. So you actually would, is there any self-paced or an intro course or something, or a 30-minute, hey, here's what to look at?
Well, actually, the Army does have a website that's called Skillport, and they have courses in the Skillport website that relate to things like Network Plus and Security Plus that they should be going to and go through those courses. They're self-paced, that they can get a lot of experience before they come to our courses.
Yeah, and that's really going to depend on whether they're in the IT industry or if they're totally coming from another area. They've never even looked at IT before. So as far as those two different types of students, you get them, you mix them in a class. What's that dynamic like?
Well, what we try to do, especially for the larger classes, we try to get their backgrounds ahead of time. And then what we'll do is we'll put them in different types of groups. And so we'll have like a group that have someone that's got a little bit more experience than the others and mix that in with those that don't have as much experience. So the experienced ones can help out the unexperienced ones. So we kind of mix that dynamic when we get in the classroom and have them work together as well.
Yeah. Do you ever start with like a personality test or Myers-Briggs or something to say, hey, maybe even here's what you might be good at? Because there's so many different jobs and professions within the cybersecurity industry that some people might be technical, some business oriented. Do you do any exploration like that at the beginning of your classes?
Yes, we do introductions with the students. We don't do anything formal like Myers-Briggs or anything like that, but we definitely have an introduction for each of the students at the beginning. And then, again, as instructors, one of the things that we want to try to do is try to get to know each of the students as well. We can have class sizes up to 24 people, so that's not really a large class. So we do have an opportunity to get to know each of the individual students as we go along as well.
Okay. Well, let's take a break here, hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back with the rest of today's show right after these brief messages from our sponsors. Over 3 million data breaches happen every single day. That's over 2,000 records being compromised every minute. So often, we focus on securing web data access. But what if the attackers are already inside, having gained direct access to your storage through data management software? When it comes to communications that go directly into your storage devices, make SNIA your first line of protection. SNIA's conformance testing limits outdated communications that are known to be used by attackers. It works continuously behind the background to make sure your storage is protected. To find out if your data is truly secure, visit our website at www.snia.org/cybertest.
Welcome back. We are talking to Tom Ponville, who is a cybersecurity certification instructor. Before the break, we were talking about how the courses would go, how the mix of different students would be, personality types, things like that. Now, if I asked you, Tom, what maybe even look at the cybersecurity industry in general, and not just focusing on training or your classes, what do you see as primary issues, concerns that need to be addressed in the industry that are or are not being addressed?
Well, I would definitely say the number of cyber attacks that are occurring around the world are increasing more and more all the time. And I think we need to try to get ahead of that problem as best as we can. You always hear about ransomware, and especially that's on the rise. As much as we can secure our systems, we still have problems with things like social engineering, where someone can call up, do something as simple as calling up an employee or whatever and say, hey, I'm IT and I need your password and your username, and it'll be as simple as that. So a lot of user education we need to have as well, and put that in place and enforce that for all the different end users of the systems.
Yeah.
So definitely the cyber attacks that are on the rise definitely is something that is a concern for me.
What do you have any thoughts on what's the best approach, how we're fixing this? I mean, yes, the training we're doing is that really all we need is to get more people aware?
Oh, no. I believe that we need to, I think that's a big thing, to be honest with you. I think social engineering is probably the number one way that these cyber attackers are able to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
But we also need to look at our systems to make sure that we're secure enough. I mean, in the military, it's kind of common sense for a lot of people to say, why aren't other people locking up their servers, for example? I've seen companies, I've been in companies where, their server is just left alone unlocked for anybody to walk into.
Mm-hmm.
So security is not really thought about, to me, as much as it should be in the civilian world. I think we think about it more in the military world, but it definitely needs to be more of an issue in the commercial world as well.
Yeah, and I think it's come down to it that basically no matter what job you do, you have to be in cybersecurity. You have to understand how it relates to what you're doing, and that's kind of what you were saying about the social engineering. They're actually going after the people that are the least informed, the administrative assistants and people that are not, they know won't or they believe won't have the knowledge about cybersecurity, and that's who the weakest link that they're going after.
Exactly. That's the way I see about it. Like I said, I've worked in both the commercial world and the military world, and I really believe that the military has a pretty good handle on personnel training as far as when it comes to cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
As far as not divulging things that they shouldn't be divulging, or letting people in that they shouldn't let in. But I think the commercial world still has a little bit of work to do on that particular area.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. So as far as I was reading some of the notes here we had made, that you teach a couple different tracks, and I see network security and cybersecurity listed as separate tracks. Can you tell me what is the difference between, if somebody said, hey, what is network security and cybersecurity? I thought they were the same thing. What does that mean to you that they're separate?
Sure. With network security, what we're trying to train the soldiers to do is to take their network, once they understand how it works and operates, take that network and secure it as best as they can. Using things like firewalls and those sort of things to protect their network. With cybersecurity, what we're trying to teach them more than anything else is things like penetration testing, to think and act like a hacker, so that you can test your system and try to find where the holes are and be able to patch those holes. So that would be the difference between those two tracks as far as what we're teaching them there at the school.
Okay, but then that network penetration testing and everything, that's still network though, right?
Oh yeah, you still have to understand the network. That would be kind of a step up, if you will, from, once you understand networks, once you understand how to secure the networks, then the next step up from that would be to understand how to do these penetration testing on these networks and find the vulnerabilities.
Okay, so you're kind of defining it as like hardening of the network, and then the adverse of that, trying to find all the places and try to attack, try to find vulnerabilities, and then provide information about here's where the vulnerabilities are. So almost like the defense and the attack side.
Exactly. Yeah, you want to be able to do your penetration testing before the hackers get there. You want to find out where all those vulnerabilities where the vulnerabilities are, and then be able to close those holes before attackers can get there.
Okay, understand. So if we said, What are your, from you've been teaching for a while, what are the hardest topics for students to absorb that you have to go over and over, train people different, keep refreshing and things? What are the hardest topics to understand in the courses you teach?
Well, yeah, the hardest topics, I believe, would be, the foundational courses. They're found in the foundational course because, like I said, these courses are the ones that we're going to get the younger students in, the ones with the least experience, the ones that don't have any certifications.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to understand, first of all, things like IP addressing, Internet Protocol addresses. And we always struggle with subnetting IP addresses. So that's definitely one challenging area that we have in our courses.
So that is setting up...
Before, go ahead. Sorry.
So that is setting up all the IP numbers of the whole network and determining how the different network segments relate to each other, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, basically taking an overall local area network and then dividing it up into smaller networks that are subnetted, and be able to come up with those type of IP addressing schemes that are associated with those subnets.
So what's the difficult part there that students usually have a hard time with? Is it understanding the logistics of it, or actually is it a memorization thing? There are so many things to memorize.
I think it's more the techniques. We find that there's different techniques to be able to subnet, and it's one of those kind of topics that is really hard to wrap your brain around, if you will. Mm-hmm. Even as instructors, we have slightly different ways of teaching it in the school for the students. But once that light bulb comes on, it's not as hard as it seems. But just getting the whole concept of subnetting across to these students can be kind of challenging.
Okay. What other kind of topics do you usually experience on kind of that most difficult list?
Once again, acronyms. We have a lot of acronyms they have to memorize. We have things like common ports that they have to memorize. Things like, what ports do you use, logical ports do you use to get your email and send email, and, those sort of things. There's just a list of like 20-something of them that they just have to memorize, and it's because it's going to be important, and they're going to have to use that on the exam.
Yeah. And you know what? I think a lot of what I'm hearing with these hard topic areas are the things that if you've been doing it for 5 years, you do repeatedly over and over again. It's like your rudimentary tasks in the department for IT. So you understand them. But if you're coming in cold, it's just a memorization nightmare almost.
And exactly. You're exactly right. The more experience that you have doing these types of things, the easier it comes. And that's why CompTIA, the certification authority for things like Network Plus and Security Plus, they kind of put that in that order where, you take Network Plus first, mm-hmm. and you start getting used to these topics, and then so it gets a little bit easier when you get to like Security Plus and take that exam. Not that they're like any stretch of imagination easy, but they seem to be a little bit less challenging as you go because you have that foundational information and foundational experience as you go up.
Yeah, exactly. So you work with a lot of soldiers from the Army. We've been getting a lot of soldiers at the university, also from the Army, from the Air Force, and other services. Those two are big in this area, though. So, but if somebody is going to move out of the Army and say they've been doing infantry or something, and their objective after they get out of the Army is to go into IT. How could they get involved with what you're doing to try and maybe get one of these or get one of these classes prior to maybe even making that exit to the commercial world?
Well, we do have a basic guideline, if you will, that if someone is within a year of retirement or a year of getting out, we're technically not eligible to attend our class.
Okay.
But with that said, we do have a case-by-case basis that we'll talk to the individual and see what their situation is, and either go with an approval or a denial decision at that time.
And I think that's what we wanted to hear, is that they have to think about this more than a year before they're exiting, and start it a little bit earlier.
Exactly right, and it's a great opportunity for these soldiers. The courses are free. Mm-hmm. Okay, right now they're free to them. We even give them a voucher if they complete the course. So it's an excellent opportunity for these soldiers, but they do need to start thinking about it, a couple of years at least before they decide they want to get out of the military.
Yeah, so that's a good takeaway. Is if you're in, and all the time I get new people from cross training out of the Army, and they could probably have benefited from knowing, hey, this is available before I get out. But also, one of the words that I like to put out is, if you have a security clearance in the military, do everything you can to try and keep that active as you exit out of the military, because it is something that is worth its weight in gold with a lot of the local military and government contractors.
That's exactly right. In fact, I have a person that I know that never been in the military. They got their Security Plus certification, and they've been asked by the military quite a bit about job opportunities, but the problem is no clearance. So they finally got their clearance, but it took about 5 months to actually get an interim. So yeah, definitely having that clearance is worth its weight of gold, like you said.
Yeah. Do you guys do anything with helping service members get that? I mean, most people in the military have at least a base level clearance, but as far as part of your school or transitioning, do you help them move into a job that then gets them a clearance if they don't have one?
No, we don't. That's going to be beyond our mission there at the school. Like I said, most of the students we get, they have their clearance already.
Yeah.
So that's going to be up to them to get that. So yeah, it's not part of our curriculum there.
Okay. I'm always looking for ways that students can get involved in, or head towards jobs and get their clearance through a company or through whatever organization is doing that. It is a hard thing to find if you don't have it. Anything else that's kind of in closing here you would want to put out to our listeners that might be helpful or whatever from your experience in the industry?
Well, yes, definitely. I want to mention that. Again, as we mentioned earlier, these are industry standard certifications. So not only will these certifications help them out in their military jobs and their military careers, but once they transition to a civilian career, these certifications will follow them and do them. They're also worth their weight in gold, and as long as they keep them up. And that would be the other thing that I would mention to these people, to your listeners, is that once they get these certifications, I would try to keep up with what's called continuing education points. Mm-hmm. Once you take this exam, you really don't want to take it again. They're good for 3 years, but within that 3 years, you get so many certification points, and they can renew through various types of online study, seminars, things like that. They can earn these CE points to keep their certifications up to date, so that they don't have to retake the test.
Yeah, and you can even claim things like this podcast as continued education towards certifications. And there's many other resources you can list online, in person. A lot of people work better in person, but those continuing education is something that we all have to keep up with, and there's quite a heavy load on some of those certifications. I know the CISSP has probably the most of any of them.
Yes, I think you're right.
Yeah, it does, because that's one that I hold, that I work on my continued education for, which is some of what this is about. I use these interviews and these industry explorations as even my continued education, but other people can use it as well.
That's great. And I do want to reiterate, Chris, that we don't do just the technical certifications. I just want to make sure that the word gets out there as well, is that we do these management certifications like PMP and Project Plus and ITIL. So I wanted to get that out as well. Yeah,
definitely. So looking for this, how would they get involved if you're a service member, contractor, civil service? How would you get involved with Ironhorse Technical University, or start the process, I guess?
Well, the best thing to do is to give us a call. We do have a website, but it's basically on the Army's AKA website, so you need to have a CAC card to get to that. But the best thing to do is to give us a call. The number that I can give you would be 719-526-6064.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, thanks a lot for joining today, Tom. And I'm sure Ironhorse Technical University will be happy to have this information out there, and maybe have some more people come through the door because of what we're doing here today. But thanks a lot for joining.
And thanks again for having me, Chris. Appreciate it.
All right. You have a great day. Bye. The views or opinions expressed during this podcast are not those of Colorado Technical University.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of New Cyber Frontier. Remember to get involved. Often we think that someone else will handle privacy and security in the virtual world, but you are the only one truly in command of your virtual fate. Join our mailing list so we can keep you informed of breaking news and new releases. If you have an idea, if you have a question that you would like to hear answered, or if you want to get involved with our efforts, reach out to us at newcyberfrontier.com. We also encourage you to visit our sponsors' links, as they are the ones that really make this show possible. I want to thank each of you for supporting the show, and we look forward to seeing you back for the next episode of New Cyber Frontier.